Okay, let's see. Okay, we are on.
Yep, we're on.
Okay, and good night, everyone. Welcome to the second night of MSP Tech Days Latam 2019. Today I'm gonna have two presentations about SQL Server 2019, and this will be very cool. We have here the master Marcelo Adade with us that we start, and later we have a second presentation with Vitor Fava. Both Vitor and Marcelo are Microsoft MVPs from Brazil, together with me. And today they were talking a little bit about SQL Server and mainly the news about the new version of this project. Okay, and the link of the event has changed. Okay, so I will share it for one later, and so you can see the updated link. Okay, so Marcelo, can you share your screen first?
For sure. Thanks, Orlando, for the lies that you told, saying that we are the master.
No, I want to work with truth. No, don't be on that.
That's fine. That's fine. Let me just share it real quickly. Give me one quick moment.
Okay.
I'm sharing them on the groups that I know of. All right, up to 5. Okay. You're going to probably see my screen real shortly. I promise I'll stop sharing my webcam. So it'll be a bit nicer. I'm joking, of course not. Okay. See if you're able to see my screen in 3, 2, 1. No. You should be able to see my screen. You should have stopped seeing my webcam, and you should have started seeing my screen, the main presentation.
All right, Marcelo.
Okay.
Okay.
We're good. Okay. Fantastic.
You can only put your screen on full mode for better visualization.
Yeah, for sure. I'll do that. Just want to make sure that everyone is watching. Okay.
All right.
So this is going to be presented fully in English. For the other, let me hide that real quick. For other people to refer back to this video later on. So this is going to be a nice way of people having a nice reference regarding the initial steps on SQL Server, on how to install and how to administer SQL Server on Linux. Right. So first things first. Orlando and the MSP team, thank you very much for the invitation. I really appreciate it. You guys know that we love speaking and presenting about SQL Server, especially SQL Server with new features. And let's get this going. Thank you very much. So let's dive in real quickly on SQL Server on Linux. First things first, my name is Marcelo. I work as a Microsoft data platform for the Pythian Group. This is a Canadian-based company, and it operates worldwide. I run a local PES group in São Paulo, Brazil, with Vitor Fava, the next presenter. And we normally hold a few hangouts as well, a few webcasts, and also some in-person meetups as well. I do own some certifications. They are from Microsoft and obviously from data platform, and some I also have some certifications for Oracle. You gotta know your enemy, and you gotta know how to properly say bad things about your competition, right? So that's mainly the reason I have some Oracle certifications as well. I don't complain about it, and it's been a real nice journey to diving into Oracle. This made me made my mind a bit wider. How so? I got to learn Linux before Microsoft even thought of porting SQL Server to it. So before Microsoft embracing Linux, I was kind of able to do very basic stuff on it. On our very spare time, very short spare time, I have a blog. It's dbbits.com.br. Our page is sqlmaniacs.com.br. That's our group, our local group name as well. And sometimes, not very often, I play some video games at the PSN as well. Okay, so without further ado, you already know me. Without further ado, let's dive in. Let's see what we're going to talk about in this session. We're going to talk a bit very briefly about the Linux operating system. How was it possible to bring SQL Server on Linux? What's the basics? I mean, how do we administer it in the first place? Because we as SQL Server DBAs, we know very well how to how to administer Windows as well as SQL Server, right? We know how to dive into the basics. We know how to dive into services. We know how to check health status and things like that on Windows. Now, how do we see that? How do we do that on Linux as well? I'm going to give a really quick introduction on Docker, how we run SQL Server on Docker, and what does that stand for. I'm not the Docker master here. And I'm also going to I also added to this particular presentation a few links that if you guys are feeling curious, you can start there. Okay, there are a bunch of links for you guys to follow on later. Okay, so first things first, Linux. What's it made of, and how did it come to existence? Well, Linux is a tiddy bit different from Windows. How so, Marcelo? I'm sorry. I'm gonna. I have OCD. I have to change that. Sorry about that. So how did it come? How was it possible? Or sorry, how did it come to be? How did Linux get invented? Well, in late 70s ish or something like that, an operating system got invented in the, if I'm not mistaken, Bell or IBM labs, something, a big huge company like that invented an operating system, but they couldn't at the moment they couldn't make it. They couldn't make profit out of it. It's pretty much, it goes pretty much like that. They couldn't make profit out of it, so they simply created the system and they open sourced it. How so, Marcelo? Well, the whole code, the whole source code for the operating system that they created, which was rudimentary Unix at the time, was released to the market. So everyone got parts, bits and pieces of it, and everyone started developing their own distributions, if you will. We hear distributions today, and we have so many Linux distributions today because of that, precisely because of that. From the very inception, from the very beginning of the Linux diving, of the Linux development system, it was open sourced. Now, when I say open source, I say that the system, the source code is open. You can open your library code, you can open your driver code, whatever code that you like, and you can change it. You can make direct changes on it. You simply recompile the file or the code that you just changed, and that's about it. you start using it. That's why we have so many branches of it. um on 80 something, no, sorry, 90, early 90s ish, a guy named Linus Torvalds, he grabbed his own Unix based operating system, and then he created another one. He called it Linux, and he sprayed it out as well. He said, here, word, have have at it. Now you can do whatever the heck you want to do with that. And we a bunch of companies, a bunch of people, and a bunch of companies gathered that code and started creating their own Linux distributions as well. And the mindset at the early days, the mindset was not profitable. It was not to generate, to gain, to gather profit. The mindset was let people empower, let people be empowered by this operating system, this very great operating system. Now you're going to see that's fundamentally the difference between Linux and Windows. Windows source code, the source code is not open. You can't simply open a driver. You can't simply open a library and start making changes. You simply can't. You don't have that code. Well, some people do, but you get the idea. It's not sold by Microsoft. Microsoft sells the ready to go operating system. Simply put, that's how it works. So basically, what happens is, the back in the day, we had a bunch of people grabbing the code from Linus. So we had quite a few distributions of the Linux operating system. Nowadays we have more than 600 distributions, and that's a lot. That's a lot of distributions. You're gonna see that the core of the language is pretty much the same, like scheduling, memory addressing, processor gathering, like scheduling, IO APIs, things like that. They're very much the same amongst all of them, amongst all of the distributions. You're not going to see the same commands, the same command line for, let's say, installing an application or something like that. Like in Red Hat, you have yum. In Ubuntu, you have apt-get, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so looking at that, and Linux grows by the day. The usage grows by the day, especially by big companies. Why? Because it's stable, because it's easy to use, because it's quick to learn. It's not complicated. But very large companies also adhere to Linux. And why and how they do that, and what are they relying on? They're relying on also very big companies that provide support for them. Red Hat, it's a huge company that provides support for pretty much everyone that buys the Linux operating system. SUSE and Ubuntu. Those are mainly the three distributions that Microsoft chose to support SQL Server as well. So SQL Server, starting from SQL Server 2017, I'm not saying 19. Starting from SQL Server 2017, you can install and be supported. You can install SQL Server on Red Hat, SUSE, and Ubuntu. Marcelo, which one is the best? Which one performs the best? Which one is the fastest? Microsoft's not going to answer that question to you. You're gonna have to do your own. You're gonna have to do your own benchmarks. You're gonna have to test it over on your own workload. Basically, what Microsoft says is pick your own. Choose it. Choose whatever you prefer. Whichever you prefer, you choose it, and then you test it. Okay, there's no best or worst. And Marcelo, what if we compare all those three distributions? Like, what if we compare SQL Server on Linux with SQL Server on Windows? Which one is faster? Well, again, according to Microsoft, it's inconclusive. They had very similar benchmark results. Now, I mean, the results that they had was testing in a controlled environment. I did some testing in like VM virtual machines and things like that. I did see a slight better performance on the Red Hat one compared to Windows. Very same everything installed, but the Red Hat was a bit bad, but I mean milliseconds better than the Windows one. That's because of the XFS file system. We have on Windows we still have the NTFS, and on Red Hat or whichever Linux distribution that you like, you have XFS or XEXT4 as well. They're very newer. They're much newer file systems, and they're much more improved than the old legacy NTFS. I'm sorry, Microsoft, I love you, but it's just legacy file system. All right. And how the hell did we get the SQL Server on Linux? How is that even possible? Well, some folks at Microsoft say it's, simply put, magic, right? Well, I'm not going to say magic. People that know me, they know that I love using those gifs. It's not magic. It simply puts hard work from a few people from the Microsoft team. Now, basically, what was it started as a small challenge. Oh, let's see if we can get SQL Server, that great relational database management, over ported to Linux, to the Linux operating system. Why not? I mean, some folks at Microsoft started discussing that. Why not? Is it even possible? Can we do that? Can we recompile the whole source code for SQL Server on Linux? Well, you can, but you would have a huge amount of work. And what's driving this conversation anyways? Well, what's driving this conversation is that, see, SQL Server everywhere. We have competition. That's fairly straightforward, right, guys? It's marketing, it's business. So we have a huge competitor, the red one, and we have another huge competitor which was bought by SAP, and we have a few others. All of them nonetheless work on Linux, HP, UX, Slowlaris. They work on everywhere. They work everywhere. They work even on microwaves. And our relational database engine, SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server, it only works on Windows. And we're the market leaders for 4 consecutive years. We're the market leaders in relational database engines. Wouldn't it be nice to empower our customers? I sound like a marketing dude, right? Horrible. Anyway, wouldn't it be nice to empower our customers to simply choose whichever operating system they'd like to operate on? Well, yeah, why not? So let's start diving into this. How did this guy here, Slavaox, how did this guy come up with this brilliant idea? Well, it's easy. SQL Server, starting from SQL Server to 2005, back in the days, we're getting old, guys. We're getting old. Back in the days when SQL Server, starting in 2005, we had a very own operating system for SQL Server. What do you mean? Isn't that Windows? Yes, that's the main operating system. But SQL Server in itself has a small operating system, the SQL OS, right? You do have an operating system layer. Interesting. That operating system does every kind of things, every single things, even processor scheduling. Now, and it does the whole control things inside, all the magic inside the relational engine, inside the storage engine, inside the SQL Server engine. Okay, nice. It's an operating system inside the executable that does pretty much everything, that handles scheduling, etc., etc., etc. And what does it do with the outside operating system, with Windows? Well, some of the calls are for the external API, are for the Windows API. How many calls do we have for the Windows API, to the Windows API? It's not much. It's not much. We have only a bunch, about 50-ish calls. Interesting. Okay, so I have 50 calls, right? I have 50 calls to the Windows operating system, and everything else I'm doing inside my own code. Interesting. What if I wrap my executable in another package, and I simply add a translation table to this operating system, to this very own operating system inside my wrapping, and when this operating system tries to call my external API, it's still going to think it's a Windows, but I have a translation layer added here. This translation layer is going to obviously translate my Windows API call to my Linux operating system, and I can translate it to any single operating system that I want. That's Microsoft thinking. Fantastic. We already had a project like that. It was called Drawbridge project. The idea of that was creating these platform abstraction layers in order to make virtualization less overheaded, less heavy. That was the original idea. The Drawbridge project is there. It's open source. You can read it. Read it. It's easy. But Slava Oaks was the first guy to actually grab this project, this project, and translate and actually create the platform abstraction layer for translating whichever external API call the SQL Server code was doing. That's freaking brilliant. If you think about it, that's freaking brilliant. That empowers Microsoft to release SQL Server real quickly, and it's the same code. I don't need to recompile my code because the binary code, the executable code, it's the very same that I use on Windows. So I only compile my SQL Server source code once when I'm creating a new version, and then I simply rewrap it around my SQL PAL, platform abstraction layer. That's it. It's ready to go to Linux. It's ready to go to any other operating system that you like. Easy peasy, right? That's easy. That's fantastic, and that's very simple, and that's very, very quick, right? So SQL Server does love Linux. Microsoft does love Linux, and Microsoft is investing heavily in open source. Heavily. There are a lot of options and offerings on Azure for open source. Literally a lot. Anyway, this is the result. In like weeks of work, Slava Oaks was able to simply get SQL Server working properly on Linux, which was amazing, really amazing. Now, let me dive in. Let me show you guys how we actually execute it. I'm gonna open a few of my utilities here real quickly. I do have two VMs, but I'm going to use only one for now. The VM that I'm going to use is CentOS Lab SQL. Sorry, I'm just adjusting my screens here. This is the good old management studio. I'm going to minimize that real quickly, and you guys can see that I do have two VMs. This is the first VM that I'm going to use. My SQL Server on Linux is going to be installed here in this VM. Okay, CentOS Lab SQL. Now, what's you might be asking, what's CentOS? CentOS is the free version, very free version of Red Hat. Marcelo, can you use SUSE? Can you use Ubuntu? Yes, you can use those things, those distributions. They're really nice. But I am personally very used to using Red Hat, and CentOS is the free open source for Red Hat. Anyway, let's dive in. So this is already turned on, and I'm gonna open another tool here, MOBA Xterm. No, you can use any SSH, any SSH terminal utility, whatever. But I like that one very much. I'm going to connect to my VM. My VM is that IP 71192.168.7111, and I'm already connected there. Bam. Okay. Whoops. Okay. This is a CentOS. This is CentOS hyphen lab SQL, right? Simply put, that's how it is. Yeah, I have OCD. I keep on cleaning my screen all over again and again and again. Okay, I think you guys are able to see. I can see the screen. Okay, you guys are able to see. Now, fantastic. I do have let's see if we already have a SQL Server installed here. System CTL status. Okay, my passwords. Let's hope I remember. Yeah, I remember. So I do have a SQL Server service running here, right? Nice, interesting. Marcelo, first things first, I want you to remove this SQL Server, and then we're going to install another SQL Server. Okay. That's remember the MSI package in package manager in Windows. It's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same idea, but it's in on Linux. So in Red Hat, you use yum. You can also use RPM. The main problem with RPM is that it's you have to deal with the dependencies on your own. Yum does everything for you. That it's easier, quicker, faster, in my humble opinion. Anyway, now I'm going to remove my repository. Already removed. Already removed. Okay. Yeah. Nice. So I do have let me see that real quick. CentOS. Oh. Just hitting arrow up, okay? You guys get the gesture. MSQL server repo. Yep. Remove. Oops, sorry. Remember, you're in Linux. If you're using Linux, Linux starts by the following assumption: you know what you're doing. Be careful. You know what you're doing, right? When I hit the sudo, I'm simply telling the following command can be done with an elevated prompt. Like you can do that as root. Okay, root is like God in here. Administrator for the Windows folks. Okay, so I removed my my repository. You don't have to do that. I'm just cleaning up real quickly. I removed my repository. You see only Microsoft.repo. You don't see SQL Server Server repo anymore. Now I'm going to re-add a repository here. Okay. Now what I'm saying here is I'm telling Yum, my package manager, that this repository now has some packages that I'm going to ask you to download from. Okay. Real nice. Real nice. Real nice. Now, what are we going to do? Well, we don't have SQL Server anymore, right? System CTL status. Oops, sorry. Yeah, it didn't remove. Did I remove it? 14. Okay. Let's see if I can simply install it. It says it's already installed and I simply can't remove it. Odd. No packages. Maybe I got the preview here. Hmm. Awkward. Awkward. Anyway, you system. Oh, sorry. Sudo system ctl status system. Oops. System CTL, Marcelo. Status. SQL service. Current command vanished from the unit file. Won't be resumed. Okay. Do I have a stop command here? Do I have a start? Okay. So the service was defunct. Defunct. All right. Okay. Fantastic. Now it's removed. There are these things too. There's that as well. Let me go back to the repo real quickly. MS prod. I want MS prod. I'm going to remove this. Just be careful with whatever the hell you're doing here. I'm going to remove this Microsoft. I'm going to remove MS prod as well. MS prod. I'm going to remove MS SQL Server repo. Okay. Nope. Okay. Fantastic. Only the system ones. Okay. Now, adding the proper, I'm going to install SQL Server 2017. Okay. I'm not going to install the 2019 yet. 2019 is not in release to market. It's still in community technology preview. Okay. So simply you install, check the packages. Again, no MS SQL Server package. Oh, let's see if I can do that from here. Okay. Now it's downloading the packages that I need. That's what I really enjoy about Yum. It simply works. Simply put, it gets every single dependency that I need, and it works. Simply put. Now, of course, we rely on our internet speed here. Not so great. Not so great. Anyway, if you're installing it offline, you're gonna have to download the RPM packages. You're gonna need to upload them to the repository, and then to your server, and then install them as a standalone. And this is being executed. You can simply upload them here through here. Okay. um this mobile X term, this utility, you can simply navigate through your file system, and that's the main difference between Linux and Windows. You have a different mapping for the file system. um it starts with backslash, right? And on Windows, you start with the letters of the alphabet. That's how you map your drives. In Windows, sorry. In Linux, you map them with the backslash, which is wiser. Okay, so interesting. Now we do have MS SQL Server installed. Now we're gonna have to configure it. It's already running. Sorry. Or it thinks that it's running. Anyway. Yeah. Ready? Ready. Starting. Yeah, let's wait. Remember the error log? There you see the error log on your right. Yeah, it's uploading. It's updating. Okay. Okay, trace. Okay. I wonder if we can now, if we can stop. Can we start? And can we check the status of that? Yeah, fantastic. We're going to now stop it. Okay. Now this is the new configuration manager. Yeah, it's a bunch of Python scripts that you use to configure your instance level settings in SQL Server, right? Um, enter your edition first things first, and Microsoft trusts us into choosing which edition we're installing here. I'm going to install an evaluation number 1. Okay, passwords for SA. Configuring evaluation XXXX days. Fantastic. SQL Server is now up and running. Interesting. Do we have this with connectivity open and enabled? Let's see. Remember the IP ending in 11. Yeah, it's the same. Oops. Of course, I changed the freaking password, Marcelo. Yeah, see. Um, Look how cool. It's a SQL Server on Linux, and the new SSMS is aware of that. Hey, very nice. Anyway, if you hit properties, you're gonna see the name of the server, and you're also going to see the operating system here, CentOS Linux. Okay, version 2019. All right, fantastic, fantastic. Now, what else can we do here? Well, pretty much everything that you used to do in Windows, you're not doing in Linux. The server is running in the Linux box, not in Windows anymore. Okay, fairly straightforward, fairly easy. You simply upload a file here, and then you restore it to make sure that it happens. It stays here. That's it. There were two databases already in place here. Okay. Now let me revert back to my PowerPoint slides. I do have another topic that I'd like to briefly tell you about. It's in regards to Docker. Now, what you've seen is a fully fledged SQL Server working on Linux, on a Linux VM. Now, Docker it's similar. It's a very similar behavior, but you have an image. What do you mean, Marcelo? You have a very small footprint of SQL Server running in your server or in your environment, and Docker is one implementer of the a concept of containers. Containers. Think of containers as a program that doesn't have or doesn't need to rely on a full virtualization to run. It simply borrows the binary files or the kernel from another machine. In this case, the host. My host is my Windows, and there's one particular VM running on it, and that's where the Docker resides. We do have a couple of great videos to watch for you guys to watch in regards to running SQL Server on Docker containers. The main idea is enable and accelerate DevOps. What do you mean, Marcelo? It's a very lightweight footprint. You're going to run SQL Server on Docker, and whenever you don't need it anymore, you just trash it out. You just don't need to run this image anymore. Okay. Uh, One of the videos relating to Docker says it's in Portuguese, but it has more and more of the administrative tasks of running SQL Server on Docker in particular. Now, the main idea of a Docker in this case is to run SQL Server literally in any operating system whatsoever. It's a Linux image that's going to run in the Docker, and as long as the Docker is available for the host operating system, like macOS, it runs there perfectly. Okay, not suitable for production yet because of the memory allocation. Because of the memory allocation setting, it's dynamic, right? And SQL Server wants static memory, all to itself. So be careful with that. It's very good for DevOps. It's very good for testing. It's very good for sandbox, but it's not good for production just yet. Okay. There are a few links that I'd like to add here, which are the references that I used to create this presentation. And if I had a book to indicate as to nominate as the best book that I've read, or the best material that I've read on a SQL Server on Linux, it's this book from Bob, Pro SQL Server on Linux, from Bob Ward. He made um he made I make sure to give him the credit for that, because the book is amazing, and he was kind enough to let me add this here as well. Okay, so without much more time, I'd like to simply leave my contacts here. Feel absolutely free to contact me anywhere, anytime. I don't have any problems whatsoever answering you guys questions. um I don't promise to reply them quickly, but I do promise to answer everything that you guys ask me about. Okay, here are the contacts for me, and I'd also like to thank you guys very much, and thank the MSP uh, team for the opportunity as well. Okay, Orlando, back to you.
Okay, Marcelo, thank you so much for the awesome presentation. The presentation will be recorded for later. And it's really awesome to see these new capabilities, mainly about Microsoft being an open company and mainly to Linux technologies and in other things. So we have now the second presentation of the night with Vitor. Vitor, can you listen to us?
Hey, Orlando, how are you, man? Yeah,
Hey, Vitor. Okay. So, okay, Vitor, you can share your screen in your presentation with us, please.
sure. Let me just choose the right one.
Oh, Vitor, I want some of your books. You have too many books. I
Yeah,
want these books.
it generates jealousy
Your
on us,
books
right?
will be mine.
Yeah, it creates jealousy on us.
I just have a few of them. No,
A
so
few
we
of
can,
them.
Just
I
a
can I
few.
can share some of them. No problem at all.
You have enough for the rest of the year and this semester.
Okay, so I believe right now. Let me just
Let me check here on the
yeah
screen,
take a
on
look.
the live.
Look here.
It's okay.
Cool, awesome. Okay, anytime you want, we can start.
Okay, Victor, you can start and I will mute my video and my phone to not interfere with you, okay?
Sure, buddy. Thank you. Okay, guys. How are you tonight? Huh? First of all, I just want to say thank you for all of you that are live with us right now, and for sure, uh, to you that is watching this recording. I know that sometimes we don't have time to follow all the conferences, all the events, all the sessions, webcasts that we have on our community. So if you don't have time to be here live, don't worry. I hope you like the video. I hope you enjoy everything that we will discuss here today. So. The idea today is to talk about SQL Server 2019, okay? And I want to bring to you some of the new features that we have. I'll try to be brief, right? I don't want to spend a lot of your time, guys. I just want to show to you. I just want to start a discussion, start a discussion about what we have and what do you need to do, what do you need to study to be prepared for what Microsoft is doing, what Microsoft is planning to us, right? You know that Microsoft wants to conquer all the world, right? And if we are talking about data, I'm pretty sure that Microsoft is almost done with everything that is related with data, right? No, I'm kidding. Okay. So let's talk about what we have here on SQL Server 2019, right? The idea here is to show to you overview about the new SQL Server, talk about data virtualization, some of the options that we have related to language options, some of the new tools that we have to work on SQL Server, and bring you a small list about some of the performance and some of the other features, other improvements that we have on the new SQL Server, right? So just a brief introduction about me. My name is Vitor. Let me just hide these, right? So my name is Vitor. I work using SQL Server, I believe for a long time now. I believe since 2000, maybe 2001, using SQL Server. I am the chapter leader of SQL Maniacs. Marcelo and I, we work together on this chapter, on this past chapter here in São Paulo, right? So if you want to join us, if you want to join the chapter, please do it, right? There is a QR code there for you to join on our Telegram group. We have a WhatsApp one, but WhatsApp has a limitation about how many people we can add on a group, and we already have a full house there. It's full of people, but on Telegram we don't have this problem. And if you want to join us on Telegram, please do it, right? Okay. Also, if you want to talk to me, there's my email, also my blog, vfava.wordpress.com, my YouTube channel. Always doing something really interesting there. I'm trying to show some new features about SQL Server, about artificial intelligence and everything that's happening, right? I'm also an MVP, a Microsoft MVP on data platform as Orlando and Marcelo, right? So you can see that I'm on the very, 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 very selected group, right? It's a group of people, only the best, and me, okay? So I'm there, okay? I'm always learning with those guys, so I don't problem at all for me, guys. So if you want to talk to me, please just send me an email. Just go on my YouTube channel, on my blog, join us on our Telegram group. Okay. So guys, the first thing that I want to talk to you before we start to talk more about some of the features that we have on SQL Server, I would like to share with you a link. So if you want to join, if you want to participate on the early adoption program that Microsoft has, this is the link, right? It's really interesting because you can test some of the new features on SQL Server first, and then share your experience with our Microsoft engineers, right? Okay. So if you want to do that, I really, really, really recommend you to do that. It's really interesting. You have access to a lot of material. For sure that it's not so easy. You need to go on this link. You need to do your subscription, and then Microsoft will start some analysis on your profile and see, okay, Vitor is a guy that I really want to test my software and share with me some of his impressions. But if you are one of the chosen ones, it's really interesting, okay? Right? But you can already test SQL Server. I believe the latest release is the CTP 2.5, right? So we don't have a date. We don't have a release date yet. We don't have a RTM release date, okay? So right now, if you want to test, you can just go on Microsoft website and start to test. Do the download, right? Install on your notebook, install on your virtual machine, and start to test. And then you can come back to us and say, what do you think? What is your opinion about the new SQL Server 2019? Okay, right? Let me ask you something, guys. before we start to talk about some of the great features that we have on new SQL Server, I believe some of you have some experience working with data, right? Okay. And at this moment, I believe most of you already read something or already talked with other uh, data or maybe DBAs or data scientists, some data engineers, some data professional about what is happening on our data world right now. And I put a question here for you. Right now, do you think that only relational data is enough? Do you think that right now, on 2019, with all the information that we have on our world, we need to be worried to work only with relational data? And when I talk about relational data, I'm talking about a table with some rows and some columns, and a table that has a relationship with another table, a table where you need to add a primary key, and this primary key to be a relation to have some relation with another table, you need to create a foreign key. So this is the relational data. Right now, guys, do you think that it's enough? We need to worry about only relational data. You can see on my screen, you can see on your screen this information right now, this graph information, right? Okay. You can say, oh, Vitor, the relational DBMS are still the most used ones. Yeah, they are. But take a look how many other data type formats that we have right now on market, right? We have time series, we have document stores, we have graph DBMS, we have key value stores, we have RDF stores, we have a lot of new data type formats that we need to work, right? So if we are talking about a product, SQL Server, and this product is focused on work with data. Do you think that Microsoft is just looking and improving the work on the relational side, on the relational data? For sure, this is not true, guys. For sure, this is not true. Okay? Right now, Microsoft needs to be worried, needs to be prepared to work with a lot of other data types that we have in the world, right? And this is one of the best things that we have on the new SQL Server, on SQL Server 2019. Okay, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes with you guys, and you will be able to see, you'll be able to understand better what Microsoft is trying to do. Okay, uh, if you start to think that SQL Server is evolving, you are totally right. You are totally right. SQL Server is evolving as the market is evolving. Okay, right? You have a lot of different types of data in the market right now. So Microsoft needs to adapt, needs to improve your most important data platform tool, data platform service, that is the SQL Server. Okay? Right? Take a look here, guys, on another graphic that I have here. Okay? And this is really interesting. This is a trend graphic, right? A complete trendy. And you can see here, let me try to do this. You can see this guy, and this guy is related with graph DBMS, right? Right now, we have a huge, huge usage on the graph DBMS. Okay. Hey, Vitor, but do you think Microsoft is working with some of those new data types? Microsoft is working with almost all of those, right? For example, if you don't have that on your own premise, if you don't have support yet on your own premise, on your SQL Server 2019 on premise one, you can have the same service on Azure using the Cosmos DB, for example, using the SQL database, but be sure that Microsoft has something already prepared, already working for you to use any of those new data types. Okay? Right? And talking about SQL Server 2019, guys, what do we have here? This is really, really, really cool. This is really interesting. I remember on the SQL Server 2016, maybe 2014. I'm not so sure about that, about the version. But I remember when Microsoft has something like cloud first. This was a policy to deploy all the best features or some of the most important features first in the cloud, and then after that implement the same features on your own premise. Right now, what Microsoft is using is something like cloud first, but not cloud only. Okay, so what is the idea here? Cloud first, but not cloud only, guys. It means that Microsoft is really, really, really interested to improve the SQL Server on your on-premise version, right? On your on-premise version. I had the opportunity to talk with a lot of Microsoft engineers at some conference, maybe sometimes by email, sometimes using our distribution list, and all of them have the same opinion that Microsoft it's not interested in just forget about on-premise. No, this is not true, guys. What Microsoft wants to do is to give to you as a DBA, as a database administrator, all the best features that you could use on your on-premise, right? So if you have something really interesting, if you have something really cool on the cloud, be sure that you have the same feature, you have the same feature on your on-premise. Okay? If you have a feature on the cloud, you have the feature on your on-premise. And you can see that here on this slide, guys. Okay? You can see that Microsoft right now it's working with a lot of intelligence. So the idea here is to improve how you can use artificial intelligence on your own premise, right? We already had a great session with Marcelo talking about SQL Server on Linux, and I need to say that Microsoft it's working. Microsoft continues to work and trying to implement, trying to give you the SQL Server on a large amount of platforms, and also the support to a lot of language that you can use. For example, Python, R language, Java. Okay, you can have some. You have some support to Java. So the idea here again is to bring to us the best data platform tool, the best data platform service that we can use, right? Okay. Also, Microsoft is continue to work about how to improve performance, how to improve the query optimizer, what we can do to improve our query optimization. What are the best features that we can release to our DBAs, to our developers, to our analysts to continue working with data, to continue work with SQL Server, right? Using SQL Server as your most important data platform tool. Okay? SQL Server is still the most secure over the last 80 years, right? Over the last 80 years, SQL Server, it's the most secure database system that we have on the market. Okay? And guys, this is really, really interesting. This is one of the most important things that you need to think, you need to be worried when you are working with data, right? You need to be sure that your data is really secure, that you will not have any security breach with your client's data. And this is one of the things that almost all of my clients, all of the clients that I have or that I already worked with, they're worried about, right? For example, we have the new regulation, right, on the Europe, right, the GDPR, okay, that it's really important to them. And if you are working with any sensitive data, you need to be prepared to secure, to be sure that all this information is really, 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 really secure, right? And guys, don't worry if you are a business intelligence professional, right? If you are working with some business intelligence, if you are working with some business intelligence, Microsoft is also working, it's also doing everything to give you the best of Power BI and SQL Server reporting service. Right? Microsoft is working in one new tool that we call Power BI Report Server. So everything that you have on Power BI, everything that you have on reporting server, right? You now have on this new Power BI report server. And I need to say to you guys, Power BI is one of the best report, one of the best report tool that we have in market. And I can say that looking to other tools that you have, comparing with other tools that you have, Power BI is one of the best that you can use. Okay, right? I don't know if you already have the chance to work with Power BI. If you didn't have the chance yet, take a look. Okay, take a look on the Power BI documentation, because this is one of the best report tools, analytic tools that you can use. Okay, right? With all those items, we can say that Microsoft is building, it's developing one data platform connected to all kind of data, every type of data, right? Relational data, NoSQL, Hadoop, every type of data that you have, you are able to use SQL Server to work with that, okay? Not only connect on those data sources. Right now, you can connect on those data sources, and guys, you can use some really powerful tools to process all this data and to give you some value, to give you some meaning about all that data that you are using, that you are processing. right? You can use, for example, Apache Spark. If you are a big data professional, you are okay with Apache Spark. If you don't have experience, please send me an email. Let's talk about that. Maybe we can schedule another webcast to talk about some of the best big data tools that we have. And on SQL Server 2019, you now can use Apache Spark and SQL to process all the data that you have, right? The idea to use Apache Spark, I'll try to be really brief. This is just a summary, guys, okay? You can think on some kind of uh, really powerful hardware to process all your data in a distributed way, right? And using more than one, let's think, okay? Let's just do some abstraction here on all the complexity, all the complexity that we have, right? Imagine that you have more than one computer working for you to process a large amount of data. So this is the idea to use a tool like Apache Spark, okay? Vitor, okay, but Microsoft is using a lot of tools, and maybe for me now it's really difficult to know what is the best to manage all of those new features. Because maybe SQL Server Management Studio is not the best one anymore. Yeah, guys, but you have something really cool, something new that we call Azure Data Studio, right? Azure Data Studio it's a new client tool that you can use to connect on your server and to manage your server, right? Okay, and it's a free tool. Oh, it's a free, yeah, it's a free tool, guys. It's free tool where you can connect, you can manage all your services using Azure Data Studio. Okay, and talking more about big data and analytics. What do you have? Okay, some of the items that we have on SQL Server 2019, right? We have data virtualization. As I just said to you guys, now we can use Apache Spark, we can use some data lake, right? You can use the idea of ADFS to process a lot of data. And guys, this is really interesting. Take a look here. You are using a SQL Server, and you have now an integration with the Spark and with the ADFS to manage to process a large amount of data. For example, stored in a data lake, right? Okay. And you can also use all these data, and start to think, hey, Vitor, maybe I can do some AI too, right? Yeah, because you have a machine learning services on your on-premise now, right? You have a machine learning service, so you can have your own machine learning server to implement your algorithms, to use some regression, to use some association, to do some linear regression. If you are working in a company that is really interesting to start to develop something related to AI, to artificial intelligence, maybe you can start to think and use the new SQL Server 2019, guys. Okay? Right? Hey, Reader, and how about data virtualization? Yeah, you can also have data virtualization, guys. Hey, buddy, Vitor, buddy, you already have some data virtualization on other versions. Yes, you have. But on this new version, on this new SQL Server version, you have a lot of new data sources that you can connect, guys. Take a look. You have connectivity with some open database, with NoSQL, with relational database, and with some big data services, right? Okay. Hey, everybody. What is the data virtualization, guys? If you are not used to work with data process, let's think. I'll be really brief again, guys. Just to give you some pieces of information for you to help you to understand what is data virtualization. So, not a long time ago, if you want to maybe do some process or select some data from different data source, one of the things that you need to do is to connect on this data source, load this data to a table on the SQL Server, on your SQL Server database, and then process all that data inside your SQL Server engine, right? Okay. But we have, since SQL Server 2012, if I'm not wrong, we have something called Polybase. What is the idea about Polybase? Guys, it's really simple, but it's really powerful. The idea of Polybase is to give you the chance, give you the opportunity to connect on an external data source and select the data on that external data source without the need to import this data to your SQL Server engine, to your SQL Server database. Oh, this is interesting. This is really interesting, guys, because you don't need to use our storage. You can just go on the file. You can just, for example, I will connect on an Oracle and I will create an external table and process the data. I will connect on a Teradata, and import and read the data and do whatever I need to do, right? So the idea of data virtualization is that you need to load, you don't need to import the data to your SQL Server anymore. You can just have one piece of your code that it's starting a connection with an external data source, reading the data of that external data source, and bring this data to your application, and we can continue from there. Right? We can continue from there. Okay? Hey, Vitor, this is really interesting. Yeah, and Microsoft wants to use this idea in a higher scale, guys, and start to work, let me put everything here, with something that we call big data clusters. Okay? Every time that Microsoft has a new SQL Server version, usually we have one feature that is the top one feature that Microsoft wants to show to us, wants to give to us, and it's one of those features that when you start to work with, you can say, whoa, this is amazing. Like, for example, on SQL Server 2012, we have always on availability groups. On SQL Server 2014, we have in memory, right? On SQL Server 2019, we have the idea of big data clusters. Okay? What is the idea about big data cluster, guys? Wow, Vitor, this is a huge diagram. It's not so complicated, guys. The idea of big data cluster is something like that. Imagine, and let's use this example. Imagine that in your house, right? In your house, you have more than one electronic device. For example, you have your TV, you have your a cable TV device, maybe you could have a home theater, right? You could have, I don't know, maybe a Google device, and for each one of those devices, you have a different remote control, right? For your TV, you have a remote control. For your cable TV, you have another remote control. For your home theater, you have another remote control. And what is the best idea for you to do something easier to work, to have one of those universal remote controls, right? Right? And this is what Microsoft is trying to do here. The idea here is, okay, right now we have a lot of data types, a lot of data formats, but I still want to consume, to process all that data, and I want you guys to use SQL Server to do that. So you are connecting on a SQL Server engine, and starting from there, you are able to connect on all the kind of data, all the types of data that we have, and I can process that data. This is what I'm talking to you about, guys. This is the idea of big data clusters. Take a look here, right? This is the application side, okay? So you have application, and all of our applications, they are connecting on a SQL Server that we call a SQL Server master instance, right? And starting from here, your query, your poly-based query, or any query that you want to do will be executed for some compute node, right? So you have a compute pool that has a lot of compute nodes, and we can see here, and I can say that this is computer power, processor power, right? You have more than one compute nodes to break your query and small pieces and execute everything using some distribution, right? Some parallel execution, okay? Right? And below this compute pool, you have a storage pool where all the data is stored, right? Okay? So you can use some Spark, as we already saw, but you can also use some connection to a SQL Server, to an external data source, guys, right? So I can use some of my compute power to connect on an Oracle and bring all this data and process all this data. And one of the best things that we have here, guys, is everything being managed by Kubernetes. So the idea here, guys, is it's something like that. Imagine that you are processing a large amount of data, and right now you need more processor power. The idea here is that this solution will be able to identify that you need more processor power, and using the Kubernetes give you more processor power, dynamic processor power, dynamically give you more processor power. Whoa, Vitor, really? Yeah, man. And this is, it's a pity that I'm not able to show that for you, because this is not available to everyone. I'm still trying to have access on a big data cluster, and maybe if I have in the near future, I can show to you some of that. But the idea here, guys, is to have like a cluster, and the idea here, the word cluster here is the original idea of the word cluster, right? If you are not okay with that, I understand, because Microsoft was using cluster like an high availability solution. But outside Microsoft, when we talk about clusters, we are talking about distributed computers working together to process your data faster, right? So imagine that solution on your on-premise scenario, guys. This is totally on-premise, right? Totally on-premise. So if you are a database administrator and you are worried that with the cloud computing, maybe you could lose your job, no way. Take a look here. you are the guy responsible, you are the person responsible to implement and manage all of those pieces, everything that is here, guys. Okay, this is amazing, right? This is huge. This is huge. Okay. uh, as I already told you, Microsoft is also expanding to platforms that we can use SQL Server. So we can use in Windows, Red Hat, SUSE, Ubuntu, and Docker. Again, if you were able to watch Marcelo's session, you yeah, and if you wasn't there, please go on your YouTube and watch that. Right, SQL Server in Linux is something that Microsoft is still improving, guys. Microsoft is still improving SQL Server on Linux. Okay, for example, Microsoft is improving the new SQL Server version to have transactional snapshot and merge replication on Linux, to have the DTC working on Linux, to have machine learning working on Linux, Polybase working on Linux, right? Take a look here, guys, and more to come. This is only what we have right now. For sure, Microsoft is still working on everything related to have SQL Server working on Linux, exactly the same working on Windows. Maybe not 100% because we could have some difference between the operational systems, but most of the important features will be supported on both operational systems, right? Okay. Also, we have some other language that you can work on SQL Server, right? You can work with T-SQL, but now you can use T-SQL with R, with Python, and Java, right? And maybe some of you start to say, but why Microsoft is working with Java? Java is so slow. Guys, Java is one of the most used programming language in the market, right? So again, Microsoft is trying to bring to us one of the best data platform tools ever. So the idea here is to support all the most important programming languages in the market. For example, R. R is one of the most important languages. If you are working with data science, maybe you are using R, or you could be using Python, right? So the idea here is now working with T-SQL and have a direct communication with R, Python, and Java. Okay? And again, this is really, really important for Microsoft. Okay? Other than those features that I'm talking, we still have some performance improvements here, guys. You have some table variable compilation issues being fixed. For example, if you are working with a SQL Server and you are using a table variable, you know that you have that problem with the estimation about how many rows you have on a table variable instead of a temp table, right? Even if you are working 1 million rows in a table variable, SQL Server will estimate just one row. So Microsoft is changing that, right? It's changing that. Okay. We have some improvements on the batch mode and row store index. There are some improvements related to TempDB that they're planning to be on this new version. You know that TempDB, it's one of the most important database, system database that you have on a SQL Server instance, right, guys? Because it's only one TempDB for your entire instance, and you could have some contention on your TempDB. Microsoft's working to bring to us some improvements on the TempDB, on how the things are stored on the TempDB, how the pages are created, and this is really interesting, right? This is really, really interesting. Okay? We have some new DMVs coming related to awaits, right? To specifically say page related awaits. You know that analyzing a SQL Server environment, it's important, and if you know how to use await types, if you know how to read your await types, you are on the very, 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 very correct path to solve all your problems. Okay, so we have some new page related await DMVs coming. Okay, and related to tools, what do we have, guys? Uh, we have some great tools to use. We have MSQL, MSQL CLI. That's really interesting, guys. So you can use that on your Mac, for example. You can use that as a new command line interface to SQL Server, right? You have SSMS. You still have SSMS to work, and as I told you guys, you have one of the best one, that is Azure Data Studio, former SQL Operations Studio. Ah, Vitor, I knew that. I was trying to remember the first name. I remember when Microsoft said, hey, we have a new tool for you, a tool called SQL Operations Studio, and suddenly this tool just disappeared. No, guys, the tool is there, and now the name is Azure Data Studio. Because the idea here is to have one tool to manage more than one service, more than one data service. Okay, you can manage a SQL Server instance, you can manage a service on Azure, you can manage a blob storage, you can manage a lot of Azure, sorry guys, Azure services using just one tool. Okay, awesome. Just to give you guys some of the materials that I use, some of the reference that I use to this session, right? So I'll send the slides to Orlando, and I believe he'll be able to share the slide deck with you guys. But also, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me, right? We can work together. I will be more than glad to connect with you, to discuss with you about the new SQL Server tools, about the new SQL Server version, or even talk about other data topics. Okay, Peter, let's talk about artificial intelligence. Let's talk about Azure. Let's talk about big data clusters. Yeah, guys, let's talk about everything related to data. Okay, again, I just want to say thank you guys for your time. Thank you for being here with us tonight, if you are watching live, and anytime, maybe in the morning, the afternoon, if you are watching the recording. Okay, thank you guys. I really appreciate being here with you. Again, I just want to say thank you to Orlando for this opportunity to be here with you and discuss about SQL Server. Okay, and I hope you enjoy our time. I'll give you the controls to Orlando. Orlando, thank you again, man. It's a pleasure. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much again, Vitor, for the awesome presentation and the opportunity to share a little of knowledge with us. I think today it was an awesome track. You mainly have two presentations talk about SQL Server, and about the presentation, you can send the link of the meetup. Okay,
Sure.
You can upload of a slide share or some tool as soon as you want, and you can share with the people later there. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
So guys, thanks so much. And before I finish here, I would like to show only some things for you. Let me share my screen here. Okay, let me only check if I already seen. Okay, so guys, it's important to remember that MSP Tech Days is a 1 month event. Okay, so we started MSP Tech Days with presential events here in Brazil, Nicaragua, Peru, Mexico, and other countries too. And it was really awesome, the opportunity to host these events together with MSPs all across Latin America. And I would like to invite you to subscribe or link our meetup from the Microsoft Student Partners community. Okay, so we are doing a series of events there, and if you can see here, we have some events that we have done. The event online of the webinars. So we started with the presential events in Brazil, Peru, Mexico, and Nicaragua, and we are doing the webinars. And on the next week, we have the webinars of mobile. Okay, and later on the other week, on end of June, we have the track of development, and in July we have closing the online tracks with innovation. Okay, and soon closing, we have the closing events in Brazil and Peru. Okay, so if you're in Brazil or if you're from Peru, you can feel free already to join our presential events. We are defining the location yet, it will be so to be 11 July. Okay, so we have much more awesome events and awesome webinars to happening, and I'd like to invite you to subscribe in our link of the meetup and follow us on the social networks. Okay. Thanks again, guys, and thanks so much, Vitor, for the awesome sessions.
Thank you, man. Thank you, everyone. I hope to see you on all the conference that we have.
Great, and thanks so much, Vitor, and thanks so much, guys. And that's it. Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys. Bye bye.
Bye bye.